Imagine if just wanting freedom made you the most wanted person in your entire country. What if every time you spoke up for your people, you had to look death straight in the eye, again and again? That's not a movie plot. That's real life for Captain Ibrahim Traore, a 36-year-old soldier and geologist from Burkina Faso. And right now, his story is shaking up West Africa and the world. So who is this guy, really? He's not some silver spoon politician or loud-talking celebrity. He's from a small town called Bondokui, studied rocks in college, joined the army, served in peacekeeping missions with the UN, rose through the ranks because he actually showed up, did the work, and earned respect. Nothing flashy, nothing handed to him. Fast forward to 2022. His country is in chaos. Armed groups are taking over villages. People are scared. Half the country feels lost. There had already been one military takeover that year, led by a guy named K1ll Damiba. But things didn't get better. People were still dying. The government wasn't keeping its promises. And then came Traore. On September 30th, 2022, he led a second coup saying, basically, enough is enough. We need real change. He was just 34. That made him the youngest leader in the world at the time. But unlike most people who fight their way to the top, he didn't demand a huge paycheck or a palace. He said, "Pay me what I earned in the army." That's enough. And just like that, people started paying attention. In a matter of months, factories were opening, jobs were being created, things were moving. But the biggest waves came when he started doing something most leaders wouldn't dare. He kicked out French military forces that had been stationed in the country for years. He cancelled mining deals that sucked wealth out of Burkina Faso and into the pockets of foreign companies. He froze the assets of corrupt government officials. Oh, and he made a rule that everyone working in government had to wear locally made clothes. No more suits made overseas while the local textile industry starved. He wanted change, and he didn't just talk about it. He acted. But power doesn't like being challenged, especially the kind of power that hides in the shadows, the one that benefits when African countries stay poor, divided, and under control. That's when the real danger started. In January 2023, while most people were focused on the African Cup of Nations football matches, some very serious people were planning to blow up Traore's house. If that didn't work, Plan B, ambush his car the next day. It sounds like a spy thriller, but it's real. And how was it stopped? Here's where the twist comes in. According to several sources, Russian intelligence tipped off Burkina Faso's security forces. That warning may have saved his life, and it wasn't a one-time thing. That was just the first of many. By September of the same year, another plot was uncovered. This time, it looked like a straight-up coup attempt. Soldiers stormed the home of a man named Lieutenant Colonel Everard Samda. He wasn't alone. A former government minister, Prosper Farama, was also arrested. But here's where it gets even messier. The trail led back to the man Traore had replaced, K1ll Damiba. Remember him? The first guy who took over in 2022, then got pushed out. Turns out he'd fled to Togo after losing power, but it looked like he wasn't ready to let go. And behind him, whispers of foreign hands, nervous elites, powerful people who didn't like the idea of a truly independent Burkina Faso, one that didn't bow to anyone or let its riches be looted from under its feet. Now you'd think the craziest part of this whole story had already happened. But nope, the wildest twist was still waiting. One day, someone powerful snuck into Burkina Faso without making a sound. No one knew his name, no photos, no official records, just whispers. He didn't stay in the shadows either. He got bold. He started making friends inside President Traore's tight inner circle, especially among the soldiers whose job it was to protect him. But he wasn't there to make friends. He was there to make a deal. He pulled a few men aside and made an offer so big it didn't seem real. "Help me get rid of Traore and I'll give you more than $5 million. That's life-changing money. Enough to buy houses, cars, even vanish off the map forever. To prove he wasn't bluffing, he handed over the cash. Real money. And not just that, he gave them special bullets. His instructions were simple and cold. When you're close enough, use these. One shot and you're rich. But what happened next? No one saw it coming. Instead of following the plan, the soldiers walked straight to Traore and told him everything. "They offered us millions to kill you," they said, "but we believe in what you're doing. We can't betray you. We have values." Now imagine being Traore in that moment, knowing the people around you were being hunted, bribed, tested. Not by street criminals or rebels, but by someone with a suitcase full of money and connections deep enough to get inside the presidential circle. And yet, those guards stayed loyal. They didn't sell out. The mysterious man who made the offer, he was eventually caught and arrested for treason. But here's the strange part: his name was never made public. And the real kicker? No one knows who he was working for. Not officially. Which opens up a flood of huge, uncomfortable questions. Who even has $5 million just lying around to take out a leader of a country that's not even considered wealthy? Who's that desperate to stop a guy who's just trying to put his country back on its feet? Here's the thing: Burkina Faso might look poor on the outside, but its land is loaded with treasure. Gold, zinc, lithium, manganese, all hidden in the dirt beneath people's feet. It's actually the fourth biggest gold producer in all of Africa, and Africa itself. It's given the world more than half of all the gold ever dug up. That's a lot of money, if it stays in the right hands. But for years that didn't happen. Foreign companies came in, made deals with local elites, and took off with the profits. The people living in those gold-rich towns, most of them stayed poor, barely scraping by. Now here's the uncomfortable thought Traore has put on the table. What if the terrorism that's tearing the country apart isn't just random violence? What if it's part of a bigger game? What if it's actually being used by powerful outsiders to keep Burkina Faso unstable, so no one gets bold enough to take control of their own resources? Because guess what happened right after Traore kicked out French troops and started cancelling those shady mining deals? Terrorist attacks skyrocketed. Is that just bad timing? Or something more? And the reaction from the region? That was intense too. The West African group known as ECOWAS hit Burkina Faso with sanctions. They even started talking about sending troops. But lots of people believe ECOWAS was being pushed behind the scenes by France. After all, France has had deep economic roots in the region for decades. They don't want that grip slipping. And that's when the story stops being about one man and starts becoming something much bigger. Right in the middle of all this chaos is a much bigger fight. A silent tug of war between the old giants of the world and the rising ones looking to change the rules. As France starts to lose its long-held grip on Burkina Faso, another player steps into the spotlight: Russia. They're not just watching from the sidelines, they're jumping in, offering backup, sharing intelligence, standing behind Traore at the global table. To many in the West, this looks like Russia trying to expand its reach, flexing its muscles in a new region. But if you ask people on the ground in Burkina Faso, especially the younger generation, they'll tell you it feels different. This time, it's not about control, it's about respect. Not lip service, real respect. Respect for the country's right to make its own choices, to build its own future, to get help without feeling like they're being bossed around or dragged back into the past. That's something France, with its deep colonial legacy, never quite delivered. And that's one big reason Traore's support at home hasn't wavered. In fact, it's grown. Young people see him as more than a leader. They see him as a symbol, someone who isn't afraid to challenge the old playbook, someone who's telling the world, "We've got this. We're not just here to survive, we're here to rise." The bullets, the bribes, the plots to take him out, none of that is just about one man. Those attacks are aimed at something far more dangerous than any person. They're aimed at an idea that African countries can be more than just resource suppliers, that they can call the shots, that they don't have to ask for permission to stand tall. And to the people who've profited for years from things staying exactly the way they are, that idea is terrifying. So now the question hangs in the air, quiet but heavy. Is Ibrahim Traore just one brave man in a storm? Or is he the beginning of something no one can stop? Even with people constantly trying to take him out, Ibrahim Traore isn't slowing down. If anything, he's speeding up. He's not just sitting in a fancy office signing papers, he's out there shaking things up. He started new programs to grow food locally, boost small businesses, and get kids back in classrooms. Schools that were shut down because of violence. Over 400 of them have opened their doors again. Markets in places that used to be ghost towns are now full of life. And maybe the most surprising part? Thousands of everyday people, farmers, shopkeepers, students, have stepped up to help fight off the armed groups that once controlled huge parts of the country. Slowly but surely, land is being reclaimed. The fear is starting to lift, but there's a giant question floating over everything. Can this dream actually last? Because history. It hasn't been gentle with African leaders who tried to flip the script. Big names like Patrice Lumumba in Congo or Thomas Sankara, Burkina Faso's own revolutionary from the 80s, stood up for independence, justice, and pride. And they paid for it with their lives. Traore knows this. He's not pretending he's invincible. He keeps a photo of Sankara on his wall, not for decoration, but as a reminder. He often quotes him, lives simply like him, and avoids the gold-plated lifestyle that many leaders fall into. No private jets, no limos, no mansions. Just a man with a plan and the guts to carry it out. What's wild is not just that he's survived so many close calls, it's that he hasn't shut himself away. He still walks through crowds, he listens, he shows up. That kind of bravery is rare, and it's lighting a fire that's reaching far beyond Burkina Faso. From Mali to Senegal, even all the way to communities in Europe and the US, young Africans are watching closely. And they're starting to ask the kind of questions that shake foundations. Why don't we control our gold, our oil, our land? Why are our riches making other countries wealthy while our people stay poor? Why do we have to keep asking for permission to dream big? Meanwhile, the usual powers are still at play. The money, the weapons, the secret meetings, none of that has stopped. Whoever wants to keep the old system alive is still in the game, still moving pieces like it's a global chessboard. But something's different now. Something has cracked. So what do you think? Are leaders like Ibrahim Traore the beginning of a new chapter for Africa? Or are the challenges just too deep-rooted to overcome? Drop your thoughts below. We'd love to hear your take. And if you're into stories like this, go ahead and follow so you don't miss what's coming next.